Hello there and welcome back once again to another edition of Silly Car Showdown. Today we are taking a look at the Honda NSX-R GT. This car was requested by a couple of people, but today the person's request who we're going to be taking a look at is Angel, aka Racer X NFS. This should be an interesting one. I'm expecting this to be quick, and with the engine swap Angel has specified, this could be very interesting indeed. This could even potentially challenge our Stelvio, because our NSX-R GT is going to be getting one of these engines, and there's 6 choices of engine, a hell of a lot of things you can do with the NSX-R. There is the 3.2 litre inline 6, 6.2 litre V8, turbo rally engine, there's a one that apparently crops up literally everywhere, the 3 litre V8 racing engine out of an Ariel Atom, the 3.5 litre twin-turbo hybrid engine out of the new NSX, and the racing 7.2 litre V8 trophy truck engine from the Honda Ridgeline truck. The engine we're going to be going with today, as Angel has specified, is the 3.5 litre twin-turbo hybrid. Essentially, this car's going to be a retro mod, a lot like that Ford GT40 that initially owned our leaderboard. Of course, in accordance with the rest of the series, Forza Aero is not allowed on the car, so we're going to leave all of that as is, and we are going to go for the racing tyres. 255s on the front and 315s on the back. Really big tyres for this car, which is nice. We are also going to use the option to get the extra track width, which is something this car does have available to it, which is nice. A lot of these sort of newer cars to the series have the option for that, and it is a bloody good option to have because it does make a improvement on the handling. While it may be minimal, sometimes a minimal improvement is all that you need, and PI is already building very quickly indeed for this car. Race springs hopefully should make the fitment look slightly less ridiculous. We are going to want the roll cage, and we are going to want a weight reduction. We're already at S2 class with this. And we haven't even started on the engine yet, so yeah, we're getting pretty good results so far. Although the way the PI isn't really, or the stats on the car aren't particularly increasing with these new upgrades, is filling me a little bit full of doubt, but nevertheless, we will keep at it. S2 947, staying at 947, and staying at 947. For the full build. So there we go, that is our car. 1014 horsepower, 933 foot-pound of torque, 2,508 pounds of weight. Very, very light car. 0 to 60 in 3.2 seconds, top speed of 207.7 miles per hour. Not the best stats that we've seen from any car that we've built. You know, it is the weight is light, but the actual power figures aren't particularly up there in terms of some of the stuff we've had. But that being said, it does have a very good power to weight ratio, and thanks to some of the upgrades it has, as well as the fact that it's a pretty modern car, this does stand a bloody good chance. The question is, can it beat that almighty Alfa Romeo Stelvio? Let's go ahead and find out. So here we are at a very snowy Edinburgh to find out how our Honda NSX-R GT Hybrid is going to cope. It is going to get 5 laps to set the best time it possibly can. Our current leader is the Alfa Romeo Stelvio, which set a time of a 1:43.20 for the NSX-R GT. Could beat the Stelvio. Alternatively, it could go after the GT40 EcoBoost, which is sort of a very similar idea, an almost resto mod, if you will. That set a time of 1:46.039, and that was our leaderboard leader for a while. So far, from what I've driven of it, it's pretty good. Another issue I was thinking I may have with this car is, even though it's so light, the power to weight ratio is excellent. Just because the power to weight ratio is excellent, usually what that means is the car can be very twitchy and hard to drive. So far, the NSX feels okay. It does want to get its tail end out a little bit, because we didn't experience that with the Stelvio, because Stelvio was 4-wheel drive, but also, Jesus Christ, the speed down there, that is by far and away the quickest thing we have had, to my knowledge. I could be getting that all wrong. I do watch these back though, so I'm roughly aware of the sort of speed cars usually get to, around the Glasgow Smile. And 170 almost is a very, very quick indeed. I think the Stelvio as getting 160. GT40 was around that level. Usually we deem the car as pretty darn good in a straight line if you can get 150 down there, so NSX is certainly quick. It definitely also feels like the top speed stat, the 207 miles an hour, is not actually limited by the car. It's definitely more by the gear ratios on the vehicle. This does have very short gears. I would have preferred longer gears for the car in terms of being able to, you know, stay in gears for a lot longer and so on and so forth. Longer gear ratios in a car this powerful does make it a little bit easier to cope with. It also means you have a little bit of leeway. You're not constantly at peak power, which means the rear end isn't always, you know, at its most primed to swing around and attack you, but it does mean that the car does get better acceleration provided it settles, so that is something. It feels nice, there is no question about that. I did prefer driving the Stelvio. The Stelvio definitely did have a lot more confidence in the way it drove just because it was four-wheel drive, but provided you're careful with it, this feels pretty good. I did have a little bit... 171 down there, Jesus. I did have a little bit of a test drive in the NSX, and it felt like the rear end on this was actually very slippy indeed. But once you actually sort of practice proper throttle control, it does seem to be better. But unlike the Stelvio, you know, this is a car which definitely feels like it takes a little bit of skill to chuck around a course. But it does feel nice though once you finally learn how to do it, because it's... Ooh, you see, there you go, there is a slight issue with not having all-wheel drive. Just sort of snagged the throttle wrong slightly there and pushed the rear end out. That's sort of messed up this lap a little bit, but it still looks like it's on for a pretty darn good time on its first flying lap. We'll have to see. Of course, next lap we will aim not to repeat the same mistakes. But yeah, it turns in really nicely as well. This turning's very, very sharp. Maybe as you'd expect. That time, not any quicker. I think it's just because of that slide out we had. Mostly just shows how good of a launch it got as well, because the launch on that first lap was pretty good. Usually we write that first lap off as sort of nothing because the cars don't really get a good enough run up to have a decent first lap in terms of like getting on the leaderboard and stuff, but this seems to have done pretty darn well. And I mean, on its first sort of lap, on its launch lap, it got third, so yeah, it's certainly doing pretty darn well. It's already beaten the Cayman if it only had one lap, and this car already has, well, quite a few to go, so definitely positive up to now. Yeah, it's more the straight line speed than anything. It is ridiculously quick, this car. The acceleration is mind-boggling, and the actual, you know, being able to achieve speeds of up to 170 miles an hour down the Glasgow Smile is something pretty incredible, and being able to relatively stop it. The brakes aren't quite as sharp as maybe you'd like in a car this light, but you do have to bear in mind this car is, you know, while it does have upgraded brakes at the end of the day, it is still a almost 15-year-old car, so yeah, it's not going to be quite as sharp as maybe it once was, and certainly not as sharp as some of the newer stuff. Then again, the Stelvio also had an issue with not particularly amazing brakes. It might just be more of a speed thing. Ooh, we're going to get a few issues getting it stopped into there, but we are going to do so. I think we're on for a pretty good lap. Round that bend at the end, clip a curb slightly, try and get it settled. 1:43.472. We are very, very close to that Stelvio. It is 0.2 of a second in it. Can the NSX go ahead and do it? That is a question on everyone's mind. Do have to stay away from the curbs a little bit. The Stelvio dealt with the curbs very well. This is obviously going to have a couple more issues just because it's lower, and also, again, not four-wheel drive. I have no doubt the new NSX will probably monster this in terms of pretty much every category, but in terms of this older one with its mid-engine rear drive layout and less weight, it does feel pretty darn solid. Again, it is pretty impressive for a car that weighs 2,500 pounds and has over 1,000 horsepower going for it. 170 miles an hour again, gonna get slowed down for that Glasgow Smile. A little bit of a couple of issues on the way out, but we do manage to deal with those quite nicely on the brakes. Around the long sweeper. That really is quite a nasty corner if you underestimate it. Just going to hit the wall. That's probably shaved a couple of, about a second or so off of this lap, but have no fear, we do have one more in the NSX to try and do better. It still feels like it's on for a pretty darn quick lap though, all in all. On the brakes again. I'm not sure if that's the best way to take that corner. I might stick to the tarmac, that might make it better. And we do pick up some understeer through the final corner. Launch it towards the line. It's not going to be any quicker. Can we get anything more out of it on this final lap? Well, we click up a lamppost, but I actually think that might have sent us into the checkpoint. I was a little bit worried there. We're going to get some of those weird bounces down that. I think the Stelvio is definitely quicker in this first section. Four-wheel drive cars will always have the advantage through sort of that tighter, twistier section, but as things start to open up, the NSX just monsters the straight line speed. Of course, you can't quite get on the throttle as quickly though, down some of these as you could in the Stelvio, but the NSX is just so much quicker in a straight line. Easily the quickest straight line speed car we've had. Maybe you wouldn't expect that to be said about the NSX, considering the NSX is known more for its handling prowess more than anything, but yeah, nevertheless, it is definitely a quick straight line speed car. And we blast it out of this corner, straight on the brakes for the sweeper. There we go. Right, try not to cock up this too much. The key is not to take too much speed. Hit a wall again, but I don't think that really affected the car all that much. That is much better through there. Get on the throttle a little bit gently. Maybe a little bit too ginger on the throttle, but I do not want to have a repeat of the last couple of laps. On the brakes again. I'll stick to the tarmac section as we finish up with the little hill climb. On the brakes, flat out throttle to the end. It's gonna be close, it's gonna do it. There we go. NSX is officially quicker than the Stelvio. Yeah. That is a very impressive car. Again, in terms of its actual overall handling, I would probably prefer the Stelvio to drive, just because it is a lot nicer driving of a car, a lot easier to drive quickly, but if you can get everything right in this NSX, it is monstrously quick. I mean, it's just monstrously quick in general. Straight line speed is truly terrific in the NSX Hybrid. Anyways, on the leaderboard, it is going to go into first place, unlocking off of the Alfa, or knocking off the Alfa Romeo Stelvio by 0.7 of a second. It is 3.5 seconds quicker than the GT40 EcoBoost. It is almost 5 seconds quicker than the Porsche Cayman. Yeah, really impressive performance from the NSX. Probably, well, obviously I did expect it. I expected this to be very, very quick indeed. I wasn't quite sure if it could knock the Stelvio off, but it has done. So congratulations to the NSX. It is our new leader. Anyways, thank you all very much for watching this edition of Silly Car Showdown. If you'd like to request cars for this series, you can do so in a couple of ways. One way is, of course, on the comment sections, either on this channel or on HG Central, where this is co-hosted. There is also my Discord server, link in the description below. That is the best place to do it, because that keeps everything nice and organised. And there's also a list in the description of other cars people have requested. When you do requests, I haven't got a list of the cars that I've tested currently, although I might start working on that just so we don't get re-requests. But if you want to request a car with a different engine or so on and so forth, you're more than welcome to. If you've enjoyed my content, you can check out my channel in the description. If you're watching this on HG Central, I make subpar 5 out of 10 content, which you can come and watch, and also you see these videos a day earlier if that's your cup of tea. But yeah, anyways, thank you all very much for watching, and until next time, trust in the Japanese, and farewell.